Majesty, Your Royal Highness, Excellencies, fellow Canadians, mes chers compatriotes,
Fellow
le
citizens,
Canada
today,
célèbre aujourd'hui
at long last,
son accession à la pleine
Canada is acquiring full and complete national sovereignty.
Constitution canadienne
The Constitution of Canada
revenue au pays.
has finally come
Et
home,
nous pourrons désormais
and
la modifier
in
nous-mêmes
the future,
sans
we will now be capable of amending it in Canada without any further recourse to the Parliament of the United Kingdom. In the name of all Canadians,
Votre Majesté
may I say
et Votre Altesse
how
royale.
pleased and honored we are
L'honneur et le plaisir
that Your Majesty and Your Royal Highness
fêter avec nous
have journeyed to
un
Canada
moment historique.
to share with us this day of historic
Depuis un
achievement.
demi-siècle, we now have a charter which defines the kind of country in which we wish to live and guarantees the basic rights and freedoms which each of us shall enjoy as a citizen of Canada. It reinforces the protection offered to French-speaking Canadians outside Quebec and to English-speaking Canadians in Quebec. It recognizes our multicultural character. It upholds the equality of women and the rights of disabled persons. The Constitution confirms the long-standing division of powers among governments in Canada, and even strengthens provincial jurisdiction over natural resources and property rights. It entrenches the principle of equalization, thus helping less wealthy provinces to discharge their obligations without excessive taxation. It offers a way to meet the legitimate demands of our native peoples. And of course, by its amending formula, it now permits us to complete the task of constitutional renewal in Canada. Le gouvernement québécois
The government of
jugeant que
Quebec
cela n'était pas suffisant,
decided that that wasn't
a
enough.
décidé de
It
ne pas
decided
participer aux
not to
cérémonies
participate in this
qui
ceremony,
marquent l'accession
this
du
ceremony
Canada
which celebrates
à sa
Canada's
pleine
full
indépendance.
independence.
Et je sais que bien des
I know
Québécois
that many
sont
Quebecers
déchirés,
feel that they are pulled in two directions by that decision.
mais il suffit
But
d'avoir vécu le
one need
référendum
look
de mai
only at the results of the
1980
referendum in May
pour ne plus
1980
pouvoir douter de
to
l'attachement
realize
profond
how very strong
des
is the
Québécois à
attachment
leur
to Canada among the people of Quebec.
Il est ces occasions
By definition,
fidèles à elle-même,
by
la
definition,
majorité
the
silencieuse
silent majority
de
content
l'histoire.
to make history.
Or, l'histoire montrera
History will show, however,
qu'avec les garanties
that
inscrites dans
in
la
the
Charte des
guarantees
droits et
which are
libertés,
written into the Charter of Rights and Freedoms
à une
and
formule d'amendement
in the amending formula,
qui permet au
which
Québec
allows
de
Quebec
se retirer
to
avec
opt out
pleine
of any
compensation
constitutional arrangement
de toute
which touches
entente
upon
constitutionnelle
language and
sur la
culture,
langue et la
and that
culture,
with full financial compensation,
de ce qui
nothing
fait l'originalité
essential
du Québec
to the originality of
n'a
Quebec
été sacrifié.
has been sacrificed.
Et la réforme constitutionnelle
Moreover,
n'est pas terminée.
The process of constitutional reform has not come to an
Ils
end.
sont engagés
The
formellement
two orders of government
à poursuivre
have made
la
a solemn
définition des
pledge
droits des
to
autochtones,
define more precisely the rights of native peoples. At the same time, they must work together
la charte
to
des
strengthen
droits,
the Charter of
y
Rights,
compris les
including
droits
language
linguistiques
rights
dans les
in the
provinces.
various provinces.
Ils doivent enfin
And finally,
tâcher de
they must
définir
try to work out
un meilleur
a better
partage des
division
pouvoirs
of powers
entre les deux ordres de
amongst
gouvernement.
the two levels of government.
It must, however, be recognized that no constitution, no charter of rights and freedoms, no sharing of powers can be a substitute for the willingness to share the risks and grandeur of the Canadian adventure. Without that collective act of the will, our Constitution would be a dead letter and our country would wither away. It's true that our will to live together has sometimes appeared to be in deep hibernation, but it is there nevertheless, alive and tenacious, in the hearts of Canadians of every province and territory. My wish is simply that the bringing home of our Constitution marks the end of a long winter, the breaking up of the ice jams, and the beginning of a new spring. For what we're celebrating today is not so much the completion of our task, but the renewal of our hope. Not so much an ending, but a fresh beginning. Let us celebrate the renewal and patriation of our Constitution. But let us put our faith first and foremost in the people of Canada, who will breathe life into it. It's in that spirit of faith and of confidence that I join with Canadians everywhere in sharing this day of national achievement. It is in their name, Your Majesty, that I now invite you, the Queen of Canada, to give solemn proclamation to our new Constitution.
The Prime Minister's speech completed, a strong speech calling on Canadians to celebrate, but also pointing out to Quebecers that he understands their dilemma at a time when their government does not agree with the package that is being proclaimed into law today. The Queen will now head towards the desk where the actual signing will take place, and Barbara, it's starting to rain very gently. One description is spitting, just a gentle rain. Let's hope it holds off. The moment the Queen puts her signature on this document, it becomes law. It will be witnessed later. The Constitution is now home. A fanfare in the background, as you can hear. The document being witnessed by the Prime Minister, the Minister of Justice, and the Attorney General, Jean Chrétien. He will be followed by the Registrar General, André Ouellet.
It's ironic, isn't it, Peter, that the three names of Canadian officials that will be going on to this document are names of ministers from Quebec, the province that the Prime Minister was just speaking to in French a moment ago.
Final signature of witness to the document that has brought our Constitution home, the Constitution Act 1982, patriation, the new amending formula, and the Charter of Rights are now at this moment in law. The proclamation is picked up by Michael Kirby, the Deputy Clerk of the Privy Council. Huguette Labelle, the Undersecretary of State, reads the proclamation.
The United Kingdom, Canada, and her other realms and territories, Queen, head of the Commonwealth, defender of the faith, to all to whom these presents shall come, or whom the same may in any way concern, greeting, a proclamation. Whereas, in the past, certain amendments to the Constitution of Canada have been made by the Parliament of the United Kingdom at the request and with the consent of Canada. And whereas it is in accord with the status of Canada as an independent state that Canadians be able to amend their constitution in Canada in all respects. And whereas it is desirable to provide in the Constitution of Canada for the recognition of certain fundamental rights and freedoms, and to make other amendments to the Constitution. And whereas the Parliament of the United Kingdom has therefore, at the request and with the consent of Canada, enacted the Canada Act, which provides for the patriation and amendment of the Constitution of Canada. And whereas Section 58 of the Constitution Act 1982 set out in Schedule B to the Canada Act provides that the Constitution Act 1982 shall, subject to Section 59 thereof, come into force on a day to be fixed by proclamation issued under the Great Seal of Canada. Now know you that we, by and with the advice of our Privy Council for Canada, do by this our proclamation declare that the Constitution Act 1982 shall, subject to Section 59 thereof, come into force on the 17th day of April in the year of our Lord 1982, of all which our loving subjects and all others whom these presents may concern are hereby required to take notice and to govern themselves accordingly. In testimony whereof, we have caused these our letters to be made patent, and the Great Seal of Canada to be hereunto affixed at our city of Ottawa, the 17th day of April, on the year of our Lord 1982, and in the 31st year of our reign. By Her Majesty's command, God save the Queen.
And now the Queen will speak to the nation. The speech will be brought to her by her Canadian Secretary, Mr. Henry Davis. Presents it to the Queen, a speech, of course, approved, if not written, in the Prime Minister's office. Queen Elizabeth II.
It was on the 29th of March, 1867, that the ascent of my great-great-grandmother, Queen Victoria, was signified in Parliament at Westminster with the British North America Act, which created the Canadian Federation. Precisely 115 years later, on the 29th of March of this year, my assent was signified at Westminster for the Canada Act, embodying the Constitution Act, which, as Queen of Canada, I have just had the great pleasure of bringing into force by proclamation here on Parliament Hill in Ottawa. I am pleased and proud to be with you today, not only to celebrate the patriation of the Constitution, but to rejoice in Canada, its past, its present, and its future. Si le projet de pays
If the ideal of the country, which Canadians wish to continue building together, may seem a defiant challenge to history, there is nevertheless reason to believe it can be realized. I have seen Canadians working together for the good of all the people. I have seen the vision of this country take shape in the lives of Canadians. There is now a greater confidence among Canadians that people of the two official language communities can live fuller and richer lives together than in mutual isolation. Among French-speaking Canadians, I sense a stronger realization that there are growing opportunities for them to play their rightful role in the development of Canada in every field and indeed at every level. Perhaps the most significant step in Canada's history was the decision of the communities to take pride in their several languages and cultures rather than to deplore the differences. Quebec was both the inspiration and the principal agent of the profound transformation which has resulted from that decision. Although we regret the absence of the Premier of Quebec, it is right to associate the people of Quebec with this celebration, because without them, Canada would not be what it is today.
Differences persist. In this vast, vigorous land, they always will. The genius of Canadian federalism, however, lies in your consistent ability to overcome differences through reason and compromise. That ability is reflected in the willingness of the ordinary people of French-speaking and English-speaking Canada and of the various regions to respect each other's rights and to create together the conditions under which all may prosper in freedom. There is a historic relationship between the Crown and Canada's Aboriginal peoples, and I am therefore particularly pleased that this innate respect for fellow Canadians is also reflected in the willingness of the national and provincial governments to consult with the representatives of Native peoples and to work out solutions to long-standing problems of rights and opportunities. Constitutional revision is really a matter of adapting to changing needs and circumstances, while safeguarding stability and providing protection for guaranteed rights. Change and movement are essential signs of life. The Constitution, which so splendidly met the needs of the very young Canada of the late 19th century, could not have anticipated the conditions of national life in 1982 and beyond. It is fitting, therefore, that the main features of Canada's new constitution should be that it strengthens the rights of its people while establishing a process of amendment which will make needed changes easier to accomplish than they were in the past. Today, I have proclaimed this new constitution, one that is truly Canadian at last. There could be no better moment for me as Queen of Canada to declare again my unbounded confidence in the future of this wonderful country. May God bless and keep you all.